Money has a way of turning family dinners into battlefields. I learned this the hard way at my parents' mahogany table, watching my father's face as he delivered news that would shatter our carefully constructed world. Anderson Innovations is facing bankruptcy, he said, his voice steady despite the bomb he'd just dropped. The crystal glasses trembled as my mother Helen set down her wine too forcefully. I'm Chloe, and until that moment, I thought I understood the dynamics of wealth and power. I was wrong. My husband Ryan's hand tightened around his fork, knuckles white against the sterling silver. His mother Diane, sitting across from me, couldn't hide the flash of panic in her eyes. It was there and gone in an instant, replaced by something calculating that made my skin crawl. Surely there must be some mistake, Charles, Diane purred, leaning forward. Your company's stock has been soaring. Markets change, my father replied, cutting into his perfectly cooked steak. Technology is volatile. Sometimes empires fall. Ryan cleared his throat. Perhaps if we pooled our resources. There's nothing to pool, my father interrupted. The company's assets are frozen. Helen and I will need to downsize significantly. I watched my mother-in-law's face transform through a series of micro-expressions: shock, fear, anger, and finally, determination. She turned to me with eyes that reminded me of a predator sizing up wounded prey. Chloe, darling, surely your trust fund is tied to company stock, I cut in, the lie sliding easily off my tongue. Something in my gut had been warning me about Diane's intentions for months. Now I knew why. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Frank, my father-in-law, studied his plate with sudden intensity. He'd always been the quiet one, but tonight his silence spoke volumes. We're family, Ryan said finally, his voice strained. We'll figure something out. I turned to look at him, really look at him, and for the first time, I saw what I'd been refusing to see, the ambition burning behind his charm. The way his eyes darted between my father and his mother, calculating angles I couldn't yet see. Family, my father echoed, raising his glass. How fortunate we are to have such devoted relatives in times of crisis. The word devoted carried weight I couldn't quite decipher, but something in his tone made me sit straighter. I'd inherited more than just his green eyes. I had his instinct for reading people. And right now, every nerve ending was firing warnings. When did you first notice signs of trouble? Diane pressed, abandoning pretense. My father smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Trouble has a way of sneaking up on you, doesn't it? Rather like certain relationships. Ryan's hand found my knee under the table, squeezing too hard to be comforting. I resisted the urge to shake it off. We should discuss this privately, my mother interjected, ever the peacekeeper. Perhaps over coffee in the study. As chairs scraped back and tensions rose, I caught my father's eye. There was something there, a glimmer of satisfaction. Before I could analyze it further, Ryan was pulling me aside, his breath hot against my ear. We need to talk about this, he whispered urgently. About our future. I nodded. But my mind was already racing ahead, connecting dots I hadn't even known existed. The way Diane had been pushing Ryan to advance at his firm. The subtle digs about my simple lifestyle choices. The increasing pressure to attend social events where Ryan's mother paraded us around like prized show horses. As I watched them file into my father's study, Ryan's straight-back determination, Diane's predatory grace, Frank's defeated shuffle. One thought crystallized with perfect clarity. This dinner wasn't just about money. It was about unmasking truths that had been hiding in plain sight. And somehow, I knew this was only the beginning. The morning after my father's announcement, I found Ryan in our home office, hunched over spreadsheets I'd never seen before. The glow of his laptop cast shadows across his face, making him look older, harder somehow. You're up early, I said, lingering in the doorway. He didn't look up. Someone has to figure this out. Your father's company employs thousands of people. Did you know that? The accusation in his tone made my spine stiffen. Of course I know that. Then why aren't you more worried? His fingers drummed against the desk. We need to talk to your father about accessing your trust fund. No. Now he did look up, his charm slipping just enough to reveal something uglier underneath. This isn't the time for your independent woman routine, Chloe. Routine? The word tasted bitter. Is that what you think it is? My phone buzzed, a text from Megan, asking to meet for coffee. I needed that escape more than ever. I have plans, I said, already turning away. With who? Your little friend from the bookstore? Ryan's chair scraped back. We have real problems to deal with. Mother's already called twice this morning. Of course she has. The words came out sharper than I intended. And what brilliant solution did Diane propose? Don't say her name like that. Like what? Like she's the enemy. He moved closer, reaching for my hand. She's trying to help us. I pulled away, remembering the predatory gleam in Diane's eyes at dinner. Is she, or is she trying to help herself? My phone buzzed again. Ryan glanced at it, his jaw tightening. Go ahead, run to Megan. But we're having this conversation when you get back. The coffee shop was busy, but Megan had claimed our usual corner table. One look at my face, and she pushed her untouched muffin toward me. That bad? I picked at the muffin's crust. Ryan's been making calls all morning, looking at financial records. It's like he's possessed. And Diane? Circling like a vulture. I met Megan's steady gaze. You were right about her, about everything. I never wanted to be right. She leaned forward. What aren't you telling me? Before I could answer, my mother's name flashed on my phone. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Darling. Helen's voice was tight with controlled panic. Are you alone? I'm with Megan. What's wrong? Diane just left here. She had proposals about the company, about your father stepping down early to make way for, she paused, for Ryan. The muffin turned to ash in my mouth. What? She suggested it would be best for everyone. A smooth transition, she called it. Keep it in the family. My laugh sounded hollow, even to my own ears. Ryan's been in corporate law for 3 years. He knows nothing about running a tech company. I don't think that matters to them, sweetheart. My mother's voice softened. There's something else. Your father, he seemed almost amused by the whole thing, like he was watching a play he'd already seen. The pieces started shifting in my mind, forming a different picture. I have to go. Megan caught my arm as I stood. Whatever you're thinking of doing, I'm not doing anything, I said. But we both knew it was a lie. I just need to understand what game everyone's playing. And when you do, I thought about Ryan's changed face in the morning light, about Diane's calculated concern, about my father's subtle smile at dinner. Then I'll decide if I want to keep playing at all. Walking home, my phone lit up with texts from Ryan. Mother's coming over for dinner. We need to present a united front. This is about our future, Chloe. Our future. I stopped walking, watching a couple argue silently through a restaurant window. Their gestures were familiar, his insistent, hers defensive. I wondered if they too were discovering that love wasn't enough when trust started crumbling. I typed back one word. Fine. Let them come. Let them show their hands. I had a feeling my father wasn't the only one testing loyalties, and maybe it was time I started my own game. I found the email by accident. Ryan had left his laptop open while taking a shower, and a notification popped up from Diane. Subject line: Strategy Meeting, Anderson Takeover. My fingers moved before my conscience could catch up. 3 clicks later, I was staring at months of correspondence between my husband and his mother, plotting their ascent through my family's supposed downfall. We need to strike while the iron's hot, Diane had written just hours ago. Charles is vulnerable. If we can get Chloe to convince him about the trust fund. The shower stopped running. I kept reading, my hands shaking, as I scrolled through their calculated manipulation. Every dinner, every casual suggestion, every concerned phone call, all carefully orchestrated steps in their plan. What are you doing? I didn't jump at Ryan's voice. Something had gone cold inside me, like a switch being flipped. Reading about how you and your mother plan to use my father's crisis to your advantage. Very thorough notes, by the way. You had no right. To what? Discover how my husband's been conspiring behind my back. I turned to face him, still in his towel, water dripping onto our expensive hardwood floors. Or should I say my father's future CEO? His face did something complicated. Shame, defiance, then that smooth mask I'd grown to hate. You don't understand business, Chloe. Sometimes opportunities. Opportunities? The laugh that escaped me didn't sound like my voice at all. Is that what I am to you? An opportunity? Don't be dramatic. He moved toward his closet, all casual confidence. Your father's company needs new leadership. Mother simply recognized. Your mother needs to stay the hell out of my family's business. I stood up, my whole body humming with rage. And you, God, I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm the same man you married. He started dressing, his movements precise and controlled. The same man who loves you, but love doesn't pay bills, does it? No, apparently it just finances hostile takeovers. His phone buzzed. Diane again, right on cue. Ryan glanced at it, then back at me. Mother's on her way over. We should discuss this as a family. Your mother is not my family. I grabbed my keys. And neither are you. Don't walk away from me. He caught my arm, gripped tight enough to leave marks. We need to handle this rationally. I looked down at his hand, then up at his face, like you've been handling everything, planning and plotting, while pretending to support me. I do support you. No, you support what I represent. My name, my connections, my trust fund. I yanked free. Tell me, was any of it real? Or was I just another stepping stone in Diane's grand plan? The silence stretched between us, filled with all the answers he couldn't give. His phone buzzed again, insistent. You should get that, I said quietly. Wouldn't want to keep your mother waiting. She might miss her chance to rehearse your lines. Chloe, please. For a moment, his mask cracked, showing real fear. Everything I did for us. No. I opened the door, pausing in the threshold. Everything you did for yourself. The difference is, now I know it. I was halfway down the driveway when Diane's Mercedes pulled up. She emerged like an actress taking stage, all concerned faces and outstretched arms. Darling, where are you going? We need to talk about. Save your performance. I cut her off. I read the emails. She froze, then recovered smoothly. Whatever you think you saw was exactly what I needed to see. I met her eyes, refusing to flinch. Congratulations, Diane. You raised a son just as manipulative as his mother. I drove straight to my parents' house, my mind racing faster than my car. All those careful plans, all those strategic moves, they'd underestimated one crucial factor. They weren't the only ones who could play games. My father was in his study when I arrived, looking unsurprised to see me. Rough morning? You could say that. I sat down across from him, studying his calm expression. Did you know? He smiled, and suddenly I understood where I'd inherited my capacity for strategy. Why don't you tell me what you've learned? And we'll go from there. 3 days of silence from Ryan felt like holding my breath underwater. I'd moved into my old bedroom at my parents' house, surrounded by remnants of a simpler life. Debate team trophies, dog-eared books, photos of a younger me who still believed in fairy tales. The doorbell rang just as I was boxing up my wedding photos. Mother's voice drifted up the stairs, followed by Frank's distinctive shuffling steps. Not the Mitchell I'd expected. I found them in the sitting room. Frank looking smaller than I remembered, his shoulders curved inward like he was bracing for impact. Chloe. He twisted his wedding ring, a nervous habit I'd noticed before. I came without Diane's knowledge. Mother touched my arm. I'll give you two some privacy. You don't have to. Yes, Frank interrupted softly. She does. Once we were alone, he pulled an envelope from his jacket. These are copies of documents you need to see. Bank statements, emails, records of meetings I wasn't supposed to know about. My hands trembled as I read. Diane hadn't just been planning a company takeover. She'd been systematically dismantling my marriage for years. Every career move Ryan made, every social connection, Every spontaneous decision had been orchestrated by his mother. Why are you showing me this? Frank's smile was tired. Because I've spent 35 years watching Diane destroy anything that threatens her ambitions. I won't watch her destroy you too. And Ryan? Does he know about all this? Ryan, Frank's voice cracked. My son stopped being his own man the day he learned to value status over substance. Just like I did. My phone buzzed, Ryan's name lighting up the screen. I declined the call. He's been trying to reach me, Frank continued. Diane's furious that you left. She's already planning damage control, spreading rumors about your mental state, suggesting you're having an episode. Of course she is. I laughed, but it sounded more like breaking glass. Can't have people thinking her perfect plan might fail. There's more. Frank leaned forward. The trust fund inquiry, it wasn't just about accessing your money. They found out about your father's patent-pending technology. Something about quantum encryption. The room tilted sideways. Dad's secret project, the one he'd been developing for years, the one that could revolutionize digital security. They're not after the company, I whispered. They're after the patent. Diane has buyers lined up, foreign investors. The company's supposed financial troubles were just their way in. Frank stood, looking older than his 60 years. I should have spoken up sooner, should have been stronger. Why now? Because last night, I heard them planning to have you declared mentally unfit to manage your affairs. Ryan would become your legal guardian, giving him control of your trust fund and your shares in Anderson Innovations. My stomach lurched. They can't do that. With the right doctors, right lawyers, right story. He shrugged. Diane's been building the narrative for months. Your erratic behavior, your paranoid accusations, your emotional instability. The front door opened, Mother returning with groceries. Frank moved toward the exit, then paused. I've already spoken to your father. Well, let's just say I'm not the only one who's been gathering evidence. After he left, I sat alone, staring at the documents until the words blurred. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Ryan. Please come home. We can fix this. I love you. 3 years of marriage. And I finally understood what those words really meant. I love what you can give me. I love what you represent. I love the power you provide. Mother found me still sitting there at sunset. She took one look at my face and poured 2 glasses of wine. You know, she said carefully, sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting back. Sometimes it's knowing when to walk away. I touched the documents Frank had brought, thinking of Ryan's text, of Diane's schemes, of everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. No, I said finally. Sometimes the bravest thing is fighting back exactly when they expect you to walk away. The charity gala sparkled with artificial warmth, crystal chandeliers, casting shadows over faces I'd known my whole life. I hadn't planned to come, but Father insisted. Keep your enemies closer, he'd said with that cryptic smile I was starting to understand. Diane held court near the champagne fountain, her red dress a splash of blood against the cream-colored walls. Ryan stood beside her, playing the dutiful son, though his eyes kept finding me across the room. Darling, Diane's voice carried over the murmur of conversation. We've missed you terribly, haven't we, Ryan? The crowd parted like water. I felt their stares, heard their whispers. Poor Chloe Anderson, having a breakdown. Such a shame about her family's troubles. Mother, Ryan stepped forward, reaching for my hand. I pulled back. Don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Heads turned. Diane's smile never wavered. You're looking rested. The time away has clearly done you good. Though I do worry about you, alone in that big house with your parents, especially given their current situation. My parents are fine. Of course they are. She touched my arm, her fingers cold. But there's no shame in seeking help when one's mental health is suffering. Ryan's been beside himself with concern. The room tilted slightly, so this was her play, setting the stage, building her narrative. I caught Frank's eye across the room. He looked away. Actually, I said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, I've been quite busy. Did you know Father's new encryption patent is generating quite a buzz? Several international buyers have expressed interest. Diane's fingers tightened on my arm. Patents? I wasn't aware Charles was still developing anything. Oh yes, revolutionary technology apparently. Though you'd know all about that, wouldn't you, given your recent meetings with certain investors? The color drained from her face. Behind her, Ryan went very still. I don't know what you're implying. No? I extracted myself from her grip. Funny, because I have emails suggesting otherwise. Would you like me to share them with the board members here tonight? You're obviously unwell, she said loudly. Ryan, darling, perhaps you should take your wife home before she embarrasses herself further. The only embarrassment, I replied, matching her volume, is how transparent your schemes have become. Tell me, does everyone here know you've been planning to have me declared mentally incompetent? Or was that supposed to be a surprise? The surrounding conversations died. Ryan stepped forward, panic breaking through his polished facade. Chloe, please. Please what? Keep quiet. Play my part? Be the good little wife, while you and your mother try to steal my father's company. That's enough. Diane's mask finally cracked. You ungrateful little... Ungrateful, I laughed, the sound echoing off crystal and marble. For what? The manipulation, the gaslighting, or the way you've turned my husband into your puppet? Well, how dare you? No, how dare you? I turned to the stunned crowd. My father's company isn't failing, but someone wanted you all to think it was. Someone who's been meeting with foreign investors, promising them technology that isn't hers to sell. Diane lunged forward, but Frank appeared suddenly, catching her arm. Don't, he said quietly. It's over. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at Ryan, saw the boy I'd fallen in love with, drowning in the man his mother had created. I filed for divorce this morning, I said softly. You can stop pretending now. As I walked away, Diane's voice chased me. You'll regret this. When you're alone with nothing but your pride, better alone with my pride, I called over my shoulder, than trapped in your web of lies. Outside, the night air hit like a slap. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. Mother was waiting in the car, exactly as planned. Did you get it? I asked. She held up her phone, showing the video she'd recorded through the window. Every word. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. Tomorrow the board would receive copies of everything. The emails, the recordings, the proof of Diane's betrayal. But tonight, I'd savor the look on her face when she realized her carefully constructed world was about to crumble. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be cold. Sometimes it just needs to be true. The morning after the gala, I found my father in his study, calmly watching news coverage of Anderson Innovations' stock price soaring. My public revelation of the encryption patent had sent the market into a frenzy. You knew, I said, not bothering with pleasantries. You knew about Diane's plans all along. He turned off the television. I suspected. The financial crisis was a test. One that revealed exactly what I needed to see. A test. The word tasted bitter. You used me as bait. I protected the company. What about protecting me? My voice cracked. Do you have any idea what they were planning to do? They were going to have me declared incompetent, take everything, which is exactly why I needed proof. He stood, pulling a file from his desk. Every move they made, every meeting, every phone call, all documented. But we needed them to show their hand completely. The implications hit me like a physical blow. You let me marry him knowing he might be part of this? I let you make your own choice. His expression softened slightly, though I hoped you'd see through him sooner. A knock interrupted us. Mother entered, her face pale. They're here. Who's here? Ryan and his lawyers. She touched my arm. And Dr. Phillips, the psychiatrist. My stomach dropped. They're actually going through with it. They filed the competency hearing papers this morning, Father said quietly, before the stock market opened. The room started spinning. Even after everything, the confrontation, the evidence, the public humiliation, They were still trying to take control. Let them in. Chloe. Let them in. Ryan entered first, looking polished and concerned. The perfect worried husband. 2 lawyers followed, then Dr. Phillips, and finally Diane, wearing victory like expensive perfume. "This is for your own good," Ryan said softly. "You're not well, sweetheart. The scene you caused last night was the truth." I met his gaze steadily. Every word. "You accused your mother-in-law of corporate espionage in front of half of Boston's elite." Dr. Phillips made a note on his pad. "Along with paranoid delusions about foreign investors and patent theft." Interesting choice of words, Father interrupted, considering the meeting Diane had last week with certain Chinese technology firms. Diane's smile flickered. "I don't know what you're implying." "No implications." He opened the file on his desk. "Just facts, dates, recordings. Enough evidence to interest not just the board, but the FBI." The lawyers exchanged glances. Dr. Phillips cleared his throat. "Nevertheless, Miss Anderson's erratic behavior." "Mrs. Mitchell," Ryan corrected automatically. "Not for long." I pulled out my own file. Divorce papers, already signed. "Your plan might have worked if you'd been smarter, or if I'd been weaker." "You can't prove anything," Diane snapped, mask finally cracking. "Actually," Frank's voice came from the doorway, making everyone turn. "She can, and I'm here to make sure she does." He walked in slowly, placing a USB drive on Father's desk. "Everything, Charles. Every meeting, every plan, every conversation. I may have been a coward in my marriage, but I won't let you destroy my son's soul like you destroyed mine." Ryan stared at his father, color draining from his face. "Dad, I'm sorry, son." Frank's voice was gentle. "But this has to end." The next few minutes blurred, lawyers muttering urgently, Dr. Phillips making excuses to leave, Diane's carefully constructed facade crumbling into desperate threats. But I couldn't look away from Ryan's face as he finally understood. He'd lost everything by trying to take what was never his. "The competency hearing is canceled," one lawyer announced, "given the circumstances." "And the divorce?" I asked. "Will be uncontested." He glanced at Ryan. "Unless—" "No," Ryan said quietly. "No contest." They filed out slowly, leaving only the heavy silence of endings. Father touched my shoulder. "It's over." But it wasn't, not really. Because now I had to face the hardest truth. Everyone I'd trusted had been playing their own game. Even my own father. Was any of it real? I asked the empty room. Or were we all just pieces on someone else's board? No one answered. Maybe that was an answer in itself. The Anderson Innovations Board meeting room felt like a courtroom, with 12 pairs of eyes watching me take my seat. Ryan and Diane sat opposite, their lawyers flanking them like guards. Father occupied his usual place at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. "Before we begin," Diane's lawyer started, "my clients would like to propose a settlement." "No." I placed a single USB drive on the polished table. "No more deals. No more negotiations. Today we're going to watch something interesting." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Chloe, please." "Computer's ready, Miss Anderson," the tech assistant announced. The lights dimmed. On the massive screen, Diane appeared in crystal-clear resolution, meeting with foreign investors in a hotel room I recognized from last month. "The encryption technology will be yours," screen Diane promised, "once we secure control of the company." "Turn it off," Diane snapped, half rising. "Why?" I kept my voice steady. "This is my favorite part, where you explain how you'll have me declared mentally unfit to access my shares." The board members murmured. Ryan's lawyer whispered something urgent in his ear. "You've edited this," Diane accused. "This is another example of her instability." "The footage is authenticated," Father interrupted, "as are the financial records, showing attempted wire transfers to offshore accounts." Ryan's face had gone ashen. "Mother? Oh, don't act surprised." My laugh felt like broken glass. "You were there for some of these meetings. Remember Singapore? When you held my hand at dinner while your mother sold my family's legacy behind my back. I never meant to get caught? I stood slowly. That's the problem with people like you and your mother, Ryan. You're so focused on what you want to take, you never notice what you're losing. Enough. Diane's mask finally cracked. You spoiled little girl. You have no idea what it takes to build something, to climb, to steal, I challenged, to manipulate, to destroy your own son's soul, just to satisfy your ambition. Everything I did was for him. No. Frank's voice came from the doorway. I hadn't even heard him enter. Everything you did was for yourself, and I have the proof. He walked to the table, placing another drive next to mine. 35 years of evidence. Every scheme, every manipulation, every destroyed life you left in your wake, including what you did to the Harrismans last year. The color drained from Diane's face. Several board members leaned forward, suddenly alert. Frank, she whispered, you wouldn't. I already have. He turned to the board. I've submitted everything to the SEC. They're very interested in certain real estate transactions from 2019. Ryan stood abruptly. Dad, what are you doing? Choosing truth over power. Try it sometime, son. The next few minutes dissolved into chaos. Lawyers huddling, board members making calls, Diane's carefully constructed world crumbling in real time. The board will need to deliberate, the chairman announced finally. But given the evidence, you can't do this, Diane interrupted. I'll release everything, every dirty secret, every skeleton. Go ahead. I met her desperate gaze. Unlike you, I'm not afraid of the truth anymore. She lunged across the table, papers flying. Security moved quickly, but not before she grabbed my arm, her nails drawing blood. I made you, she hissed. Without my son, you're nothing. I didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned closer, speaking softly enough that only she could hear. No, Diane, you didn't make me. You revealed me, and that's your biggest mistake. As security led them out, Ryan looked back once. For a moment, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with. Lost, broken, but finally free from his mother's shadow. I'm sorry, he mouthed. I nodded, but didn't speak. Some apologies come too late to matter. Father touched my shoulder. The board will vote to press charges. Good. I gathered my things, suddenly exhausted. But that's not why I did this. Then why? I thought about Diane's words. I made you. Because sometimes, I said quietly, the only way to unmake someone else's version of you is to show them who you really are. The truth, it turns out, is the sweetest revenge of all. The divorce papers felt lighter than I expected, maybe because I'd already done the heavy lifting, carrying other people's expectations, shouldering their ambitions, bearing the weight of false love. Megan poured coffee as I signed the final page. My kitchen, once filled with Ryan's expensive gadgets, now held only what I truly needed. Have you seen the news? She asked, sliding her phone across the table. Diane Mitchell faces federal charges, the headline declared. Below it, a smaller story. Frank Mitchell files for divorce. Good for Frank, I said, meaning it. Better late than never. My phone buzzed. Ryan's number. I declined the call, just as I had the last dozen. Some conversations weren't worth having anymore. Your father called, Mother said, entering with a stack of mail. The board approved the new security protocols. The encryption patent is safe. And the company? Stronger than ever. She hesitated. Ryan's law firm dropped him. Apparently, attempted corporate espionage isn't good for business. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt something closer to peace. The quiet kind that comes after a storm. The doorbell rang. Through the window I saw Frank, standing on the porch, looking older but somehow lighter. I'm not staying, he said when I opened the door. I just wanted you to have this. He handed me a small box. Inside lay a familiar pearl necklace, the one Diane had worn to every important event, her symbol of achieved status. She threw it at me during the divorce discussion, Frank explained. said it represented everything she'd sacrificed for our family. But we both know she never sacrificed anything. She only took. Frank, let me finish. He straightened his shoulders. I'm moving to Maine. Bought a small bookstore up there. Always wanted to run one, before Diane convinced me it wasn't ambitious enough. I touched the pearls, feeling their smooth surface. Why give these to me? Because you showed me something I'd forgotten. That real strength isn't about taking what you want. It's about standing firm in who you are. After he left, I sat on the porch steps, watching the autumn leaves dance across the lawn. Mother joined me, her shoulder touching mine. What will you do with them? She asked, nodding at the pearls. I thought about Diane, about how desperately she'd chased symbols of success, turning her son into a reflection of her own ambitions. There's a women's shelter downtown, I said. They help people rebuild their lives. Maybe these can fund someone else's fresh start. Mother smiled, understanding what I wasn't saying. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about transforming their weapons into something better. Inside, Megan was clearing the coffee cups. Ready for dinner, that new bistro opened downtown. Actually, I interrupted. I thought we could cook here, something simple. She paused, then grinned. Like those terrible pancakes we used to make in college? Exactly like that. As we gathered ingredients, I caught my reflection in the window. No designer clothes, no careful makeup, no pretense. Just me, finally comfortable in my own skin. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Ryan. I never deserved you. I deleted it without responding. He was right. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was that I'd finally learned to deserve myself. You're smiling, Megan observed, measuring flour with cheerful imprecision. Because I just realized something. I cracked an egg, letting the shell fall away, clean and complete. All this time, I thought I was fighting to save my family's company, or my marriage, or even my dignity. But really, I was fighting to save myself, and I did. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the kitchen in shades of gold. Somewhere across town, Diane was facing the consequences of her actions. Somewhere in Maine, Frank was starting over. And here, in this kitchen that was finally truly mine, I was doing what I should have done years ago, living life on my own terms, making a mess, and not apologizing for any of it.
The crash of shattering glass jolted me from my fitful sleep. I bolted upright, heart pounding, as Martha's shrill voice pierced the air. "Alex! Come quick! I've broken my favorite vase." I groaned, rubbing my eyes as I glanced at the clock. 3:17 a.m. This was the third time this week my mother-in-law had woken us in the middle of the night. I turned to Alex, expecting to see him stirring, but he was already out of bed, rushing to his mother's aid. "It's okay, Mom." I heard him soothe from down the hall. "We'll get you a new one tomorrow." I sighed, knowing full well who'd be footing the bill for that replacement. As I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my daughter Emily appeared in the doorway, her face etched with worry. "Is everything all right, Mom?" she asked, her voice small and uncertain. I forced a smile. "Everything's fine, sweetie. Grandma just had a little accident. Go back to bed." Emily hesitated, then nodded and retreated to her room. I followed her out, determined to assess the damage. As I approached Martha's room, which used to be our guest room, I overheard her conversation with Alex. "Oh, darling, it was such a beautiful piece. Imported from Italy, you know. I simply must have another one just like it." "Of course, Mom," Alex replied, his tone placating. "We'll go shopping first thing in the morning." I stepped into view, arms crossed. "Alex, can I talk to you for a moment?" He looked up, startled, as if he'd forgotten I existed. "Becky, honey, can't it wait until morning? Mom's upset." "It's important," I insisted, my jaw clenched. Alex sighed, patting his mother's hand. "I'll be right back, Mom." We stepped into the hallway, and I wasted no time. "Alex, we can't afford to keep replacing everything she breaks. Do you know how much that vase cost?" He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding my gaze. I know. But what am I supposed to do? She's grieving, Becky. It's only been 6 months since Dad passed." "I understand that," I said, trying to keep my voice low. "But she's burning through our savings. The credit card bills are piling up, and Emily needs new clothes for school. Alex's face hardened. My mother needs us right now. Emily can make do with what she has for a little longer. I felt my temper flare. And what about what we need? What about our family? Mom is family? He snapped. Alex? Martha's voice drifted from the bedroom. Is everything all right? Fine, Mom, he called back, then turned to me. We'll discuss this later. Go back to bed. As he retreated to Martha's room, I stood there, seething. This wasn't the first time Alex had chosen his mother's comfort over our family's needs, and I had a sinking feeling it wouldn't be the last. I made my way to the kitchen, knowing sleep would elude me now. As I filled the kettle for tea, I noticed a stack of shopping bags in the corner, more of Martha's recent purchases. Curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked inside one of the bags. My breath caught as I pulled out a designer handbag, the price tag still attached. The cost was more than our monthly grocery budget. What are you doing? I whirled around to find Martha standing in the doorway, her eyes narrowed suspiciously. I was just tidying up, I lied, hastily shoving the bag back into place. She sniffed, clearly not believing me. Well, since you're up, be a dear and make me some chamomile tea. This dreadful accident has left me quite shaken. I bit back a retort, forcing a smile. Of course, Martha, coming right up. As I prepared her tea, my mind raced. How much longer could we go on like this? Something had to give, and soon. Little did I know this was just the beginning of a storm that would tear our family apart and force me to fight for everything I held dear. I stared at the credit card statement in disbelief, my hands shaking. The balance had nearly doubled since last month, and I knew exactly why. Martha's shopping sprees were spiraling out of control. Alex, we need to talk, I called out, my voice strained. He sauntered into the kitchen, coffee mug in hand. What's up, honey? I thrust the statement at him. This is what's up. Your mother's spending is out of control. We can't keep living like this. Alex's face hardened as he glanced at the paper. Come on, Becky. It's not that bad. Mom's just trying to feel better after losing Dad. Not that bad, I sputtered. Alex, we're talking thousands of dollars here. On what? Designer clothes? Antiques? Things we don't need and can't afford. He set his mug down with a clank. What do you want me to do? Tell her she can't buy things? She's grieving, Becky. It's been 8 months, Alex. Grief doesn't justify financial ruin. Just then, Martha breezed into the kitchen, decked out in what looked like a brand new "Good morning, dears. Alex, be a love and take me shopping today. I simply must have those new throw pillows I saw in the catalog." I watched in horror as Alex nodded without hesitation. Sure, Mom. We'll go after breakfast. Alex, I hissed, but he shot me a warning look. Martha turned to me, her smile sickeningly sweet. Oh, Becky, I almost forgot. I accidentally spilled some wine on that quilt your grandmother made. I'll need you to take it to the cleaners. My blood ran cold. That quilt was a family heirloom, irreplaceable. You what? It's just a quilt, dear, Martha said dismissively. No need to get upset. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Alex quickly intervened. Don't worry, Mom. We'll take care of it. As Martha sashayed out of the kitchen, I rounded on Alex. How can you let her treat our things, my family heirlooms, like this? He sighed, rubbing his temples. It was an accident, Becky. Let it go. Let it go? Like I'm supposed to let go of our savings? Our future? Emily's college fund? Alex's eyes flashed. That's enough. I won't have you talking about my mother like this. She's family, and we take care of family. What about our family? I shot back. What about Emily? She needs new clothes for school, but we can't afford them because your mother's buying $500 throw pillows. We'll figure it out, he said dismissively. Now, I need to get ready to take Mom shopping. As he walked away, I felt something inside me snap. I grabbed my phone and dialed my sister's number. Mackenzie? I need to talk. Can we meet for coffee? An hour later, I sat across from my sister in our favorite cafe, pouring out my frustrations. Mackenzie listened intently, her brow furrowed. Becky, this isn't healthy, for any of you. Have you considered counseling? I laughed bitterly. Alex won't hear of it. He thinks everything's fine. And what about you? She asked gently. What do you think? I stared into my coffee, fighting back tears. I think I'm losing my husband and my sanity. Mackenzie reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You need to stand up for yourself, Becky. For Emily, too. This can't go on. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Alex. Mom wants to redo the guest room, picking out furniture now. Don't wait up. I showed Mackenzie the message, my hands trembling with anger. Her eyes widened. The guest room? Isn't that where Emily's been sleeping since Martha moved in? I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. What am I going to do, Mac? How did it come to this? Mackenzie's gaze hardened with determination. You're going to fight, sis. It's time to take back control of your life, and I'll be right here to help you do it. As I left the cafe, a mix of fear and resolve churned in my stomach. I knew a storm was coming, and I had to be ready to weather it, for myself and for Emily. I stood in the doorway of Emily's room, my heart sinking as I watched her pack her belongings into cardboard boxes. The hurt in her eyes was palpable, and it tore at my soul. Mom, why do I have to move? Emily asked, her voice cracking. This is my room. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my composure. I know, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Your father thinks it's best if Grandma has more space. Emily slammed a book into a box. More space? For what? Her stupid antiques? Before I could respond, Alex appeared behind me. What's going on here? I turned to face him, steeling myself. Emily's upset about moving rooms, and frankly, so am I. Alex's jaw tightened. We've been over this, Becky. Mom needs the extra space. For what? I challenged. Her endless shopping sprees? That's enough, Alex snapped. Emily, finish packing. You're moving to the basement today. Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. The basement? But it's cold and damp down there. I couldn't hold back any longer. Alex, this is ridiculous. You can't put our daughter in the basement. He grabbed my arm, pulling me into the hallway. I said that's enough. This isn't up for discussion. I yanked my arm free, fury building inside me. Like hell it isn't. This is our daughter we're talking about. Mom's comfort is important too, Alex insisted. More important than Emily's? I shot back. Our raised voices drew Martha from her room. She glided towards us, a look of feigned concern on her face. What's all this fuss about? Alex turned to his mother, his voice softening. It's nothing, Mom. We're just discussing Emily's room change. Martha's eyes lit up. Oh yes, I can't wait to start decorating. I'm thinking of a Parisian theme. It'll be simply divine. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Martha, this is Emily's room. She's lived here her entire life. Martha waved her hand dismissively. She's young. She'll adapt. Now, Alex dear, I need you to take me shopping for new curtains. I watched in horror as Alex nodded, completely disregarding the pain he was causing his own daughter. Something inside me snapped. No, I said firmly. Alex and Martha turned to me, shocked. What did you say? Alex demanded. I said no, I repeated, my voice growing stronger. Emily is not moving to the basement. This is her room, and she's staying in it. Martha's face contorted with anger. How dare you speak to me like that in my own home? Your home, I laughed bitterly. This is our home. The home Alex and I built together. The home where we raised our daughter. Alex stepped between us. Becky, you're out of line. Apologize to my mother. I stared at him in disbelief. Apologize? For what? For standing up for our daughter? Emily appeared in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Stop it! Just stop fighting! The sight of my daughter's distress fueled my resolve. I turned to Alex, my voice low and determined. This ends now. Either Martha goes or Emily and I do. A heavy silence fell over the hallway. Alex's face paled as he realized the gravity of the situation. Martha sputtered indignantly, but for once, she seemed at a loss for words. Emily moved to my side, gripping my hand tightly. I squeezed back, drawing strength from her presence. Alex looked between us and his mother, conflict etched across his face. Becky, you can't be serious. You wouldn't leave. I met his gaze steadily. Try me. As we stood there, the air thick with tension, I realized we had reached a turning point. There was no going back now. Whatever happened next would change our family forever. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the storm that was about to break. So, Alex, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, what's it going to be? The tension in our house was suffocating. After my ultimatum, Alex had reluctantly agreed to let Emily keep her room, but the rift between us had only widened. Martha, for her part, had retreated into a sullen silence, punctuated by dramatic sighs and pointed glares in my direction. It was in this strained atmosphere that Alex announced his grand plan to fix everything. We're having a family dinner tonight, he declared over breakfast. Mom's idea. She wants to smooth things over. I eyed him skeptically. And how exactly is dinner supposed to fix this? Alex's smile was strained. Just give it a chance, Becky, please? Against my better judgment, I agreed. That evening, I found myself helping Martha in the kitchen, chopping vegetables while she stirred a pot on the stove. I hope you like bouillabaisse, Martha chirped, her tone overly sweet. It's Alex's favorite. I froze, knife hovering over a carrot. Bouillabaisse? Martha, you know Emily's allergic to shellfish. She waved a hand dismissively. Oh, I'm sure it's not that serious. Besides, she can pick around it. Before I could protest further, Alex walked in. Smells great, Mom. What are we having? Your favorite, dear. Martha beamed. Bouillabaisse. I waited for Alex to object, to remember his daughter's allergy. Instead, he grinned. Perfect. I haven't had that in ages. My blood began to boil. Alex, a word? I pulled him into the hallway, keeping my voice low. Have you forgotten about Emily's allergy? She can't eat that. Alex rolled his eyes. Come on, Becky. It's not like she'll die from it. She can have a salad or something. I stared at him, dumbfounded. Are you serious right now? This is our daughter's health we're talking about. You're overreacting, he snapped. Just let Mom have this, okay? She's trying to make peace. As Alex stormed back to the kitchen, I felt a familiar hand on my shoulder. Emily had overheard everything. It's okay, Mom, she said softly. I'll just eat the bread. My heart broke at the resignation in her voice. No, sweetie, this isn't okay. Dinner was a tense affair. Martha prattled on about her latest shopping finds while Alex nodded along enthusiastically. I pushed food around my plate, my appetite gone. Emily sat silently, nibbling on a piece of bread. Emily, dear, Martha suddenly addressed her. You've hardly touched your food. Don't you like Grandma's cooking? Emily shifted uncomfortably. I can't eat it, Grandma. Remember? I'm allergic to shellfish. Martha's eyes narrowed. Don't be ridiculous. A little seafood never hurt anyone. You're just being picky. Mom, Alex interjected, maybe you could make Emily a sandwich or something? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you kidding me? Your mother makes a meal our daughter is allergic to, and your solution is to have Emily make her own dinner? Martha huffed. Well, I certainly didn't slave over a hot stove all day to cater to her imaginary allergies. That was the last straw. Emily burst into tears and ran from the table. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Imaginary, I seethed. The last time Emily ate shellfish, she ended up in the hospital. But I guess that was just her imagination too, right? Alex stood as well, his face red with anger. That's enough, Becky. You're ruining dinner. I'm ruining dinner? I laughed bitterly. You two are unbelievable. Your own daughter's health means nothing to you. As I turned to go after Emily, Martha's voice stopped me cold. You know, Alex, I always said you married beneath you, and now look at the ungrateful brats you've raised. The room fell silent. I looked at Alex, waiting for him to defend us, to stand up to his mother at last, but he said nothing. In that moment, I knew. This wasn't just about tonight's dinner. This was about years of neglect, of choosing his mother over his family. And I was done. I met Alex's gaze, my voice steady. Pack your bags. Emily and I are leaving tonight. As I walked out of the dining room to comfort my daughter and plan our escape, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Our lives were about to change dramatically. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. I sat on Mackenzie's couch, clutching a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. Emily was asleep in the guest room, exhausted from crying. We'd been at my sister's house for 3 days now, and I still felt like I was in a daze. Becky, Mackenzie said gently, you need to decide what you're going to do next. I nodded, my eyes burning with unshed tears. I know. I never thought it would come to this. Mackenzie reached out and squeezed my hand. Alex has called you 12 times. Have you listened to any of his messages? I shook my head. I can't. Not yet. Every time I think about that dinner, about how he just sat there while Martha... My voice broke, and Mackenzie pulled me into a hug. I know, sis, I know. As I pulled away, wiping my eyes, my phone buzzed. Another message from Alex. This time, curiosity got the better of me, and I hit play. Becky, please, Alex's voice crackled through the speaker. Come home. We can work this out. Mom's agreed to move into an apartment nearby. Please just give us another chance. I looked at Mackenzie, my heart racing. He says Martha's moving out. My sister's eyes narrowed. And you believe that? The doubt in her voice mirrored my own. I sighed, deleting the message. No, I don't. Mackenzie nodded, then hesitated. Becky, there's something you need to see. She pulled out her laptop and opened a series of documents. As I scanned them, my blood ran cold. What is this? I whispered. Bank statements, Mackenzie replied. I had a friend look into your finances. Alex has been funneling money into a separate account for months, an account in Martha's name. The room spun as the implications hit me. All those times I'd questioned our dwindling savings, all the excuses Alex had made. He's been lying to me, I said, my voice hollow. All this time he's been stealing from you, Mackenzie finished. From Emily's college fund, from your retirement savings, everything. A wave of nausea washed over me. How much? Mackenzie's face was grim. Almost everything, Becky. If you don't act soon, there might not be anything left. I stood up abruptly, pacing the room. Anger, betrayal, and fear warred within me. What am I going to do? How can I protect Emily, our future? Mackenzie stood, placing her hands on my shoulders to still my frantic movement. You fight, Becky. You take control. Starting now. She guided me back to the couch and opened another document on her laptop. I've drafted divorce papers. All you have to do is sign. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. This was it, the point of no return. If I do this, I said slowly, there's no going back. Why? Mackenzie nodded. No, there isn't. But think about Emily. Think about yourself. You deserve better than this, Becky. Both of you do. As if on cue, Emily appeared in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. Mom, what's going on? I looked at my daughter, seeing the strength and resilience that mirrored my own. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. Come here, sweetie, I said, patting the couch beside me. As Emily sat down, I took a deep breath. We need to talk about the future, our future. Emily's eyes widened as she looked at the laptop screen. Are we? I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over me. Yes, honey. I'm filing for divorce. We're starting over. To my surprise, Emily's face broke into a relieved smile. Good, she said firmly. We don't need them, Mom. We'll be okay on our own. Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged my daughter close. Over her shoulder, I met Mackenzie's gaze and nodded. You're right, I said, reaching for the pen. We will be okay. As I signed my name on the divorce papers, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time in years, I felt hope. Hope for a future free from manipulation and betrayal. Hope for a life where Emily and I could thrive. I closed the laptop, my decision made. Mackenzie, can you call your lawyer friend? It's time to take back our lives. The lawyer's office felt suffocating as I sat across from Alex, the divorce papers between us like a chasm. Mackenzie squeezed my hand under the table, a silent reminder of her support. Emily waited outside, insisting on being here despite my reservations. You can't be serious about this, Becky, Alex pleaded, his eyes darting between me and the papers. We can work it out. I'll send Mom to a retirement community, please. I steeled myself against the familiar pull of his words. It's too late for that, Alex. You've made your choice, time and time again. Our lawyer, Sarah, cleared her throat. Mr. Drew, we've outlined the division of assets. Given the circumstances, Mrs. Sullivan is entitled to... Entitled? Alex's face contorted with anger. She's not entitled to anything. It's my money. I felt a surge of righteous fury. Your money? The money you've been funneling to your mother? The money from our daughter's college fund? Alex paled, caught off guard. How did you? It doesn't matter, I cut him off. What matters is that you betrayed us, Alex, me and Emily both. Sarah intervened, her voice calm but firm. Mr. Drew, given the evidence of financial misconduct, you're facing serious legal consequences. This settlement is more than fair. Alex's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but he shook his head, eyes blazing. I won't sign. You can't make me. Then we'll see you in court, Sarah replied coolly. As we stood to leave, the door burst open. Martha stormed in, her face a mask of fury. You ungrateful witch! How dare you try to ruin my son's life? Mackenzie stepped between us, but Martha was undeterred. After everything we've done for you, Alex, don't you dare sign those papers. She doesn't deserve a penny. I watched as Alex's resolve visibly strengthened under his mother's influence. Any hope of an amicable resolution evaporated. Fine, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. We'll do this the hard way. As we left the office, Emily rushed to my side. Mom, what happened? I hugged her close, my heart breaking at the worry in her eyes. It's okay, sweetie. We're going to be okay. But as we drove home, the reality of our situation crashed over me. A lengthy court battle would drain what little resources we had left. How would I provide for Emily? How could I fight Alex and Martha's combined resources? At home, I excused myself and retreated to the bathroom, finally allowing the tears to fall. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the uncertainty, the fear, threatened to crush me. A soft knock interrupted my breakdown. "Mom?" Emily's voice called. "Can I come in?" I quickly wiped my eyes and opened the door. Emily took one look at me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "We're going to make it," she said fiercely. "We don't need them. We have each other." Her words, so full of conviction, pierced through my despair. I hugged her back, marveling at her strength. "You're right," I whispered. "We do have each other." As we stood there, I felt a shift inside me. The fear and doubt receded, replaced by a steely determination. Alex and Martha had underestimated me for the last time. I gently pulled away from Emily, meeting her gaze. "Honey, I need you to be strong for a little while longer. Things might get tough, but I promise you, I'm going to fight for us with everything I have." Emily nodded, her jaw set in a determined line that mirrored my own. "I know, Mom, and I'll be right here with you." In that moment, looking at my brave, resilient daughter, I knew I had to win this battle, not just for myself, but for her future, for the life we deserved. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "Okay," I said, more to myself than to Emily. "Let's show them what we're made of." As we walked out of the bathroom together, I felt a newfound resolve coursing through me. The road ahead would be hard, but I was ready to fight, ready to reclaim our lives, and ready to build a future free from Alex and Martha's toxic influence. The real battle was just beginning, and I was prepared to give it everything I had. The moving truck rumbled to life outside our house. No, Alex's house now. I stood in the barren living room, surrounded by empty spaces where our life together once resided. Emily appeared at my side, her face a mix of determination and apprehension. "Is this really happening, Mom?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I squeezed her hand. "Yes, sweetie, it's time." As if on cue, the front door burst open. Alex stormed in, his face contorted with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I steeled myself, meeting his gaze. "We're leaving, Alex, for good." His eyes darted around the room, taking in the bare walls and empty spaces. "You can't just take everything. This is my house." "Your house?" I laughed bitterly. "Everything I'm taking, I bought with my own money. Money you didn't manage to funnel into your mother's account." Alex's face paled. "You don't understand. Mom needed—" "Save it." I cut him off. "We're done here." As we moved towards the door, Martha appeared, her eyes widening at the sight of the empty house. "What have you done, you spiteful witch?" I felt Emily tense beside me, but I stood my ground. "I'm taking back what's rightfully ours, Martha. You've taken enough from us." Martha's face twisted with fury. She lunged forward, grabbing a vase, one of the few items left, and hurled it at us. I pushed Emily out of the way, feeling the sting as shards of ceramic sliced my arm. "Mom!" Emily cried out. "That's assault!" Mackenzie's voice rang out. She stood in the doorway, phone in hand, recording everything. "It's all on video, Martha. Back off." Alex grabbed his mother's arm, finally seeming to realize the gravity of the situation. "Mom, stop. This isn't helping." I clutched my bleeding arm, adrenaline coursing through me. "We're leaving now. Our lawyer will be in touch." As we walked out, I heard Martha's shrill voice. "You'll regret this, Rebecca. We'll destroy you in court." The drive to our new apartment was tense. Emily kept glancing at my arm, worry etched on her face. "Are you okay, Mom?" I managed to smile. "I'm fine, sweetie. It's just a scratch." But inside I was trembling. Martha's threat echoed in my mind. Could they really destroy us in court? I thought of the meager savings we had left, the uncertain future ahead. At the new apartment, reality hit hard. Our furniture looked shabby in the harsh light of the empty rooms. Emily's face fell as she surveyed her tiny bedroom. "It's cozy," she said, trying to sound upbeat. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I know this isn't what you're used to." She turned to me, her eyes fierce. "Don't apologize, Mom. We're free now. That's what matters." As we unpacked, my phone buzzed incessantly. Texts from Alex, voicemails from Martha, emails from their lawyer. Each notification felt like a blow, chipping away at my resolve. Late that night, after Emily had gone to bed, I sat on our second-hand couch, overwhelmed by the enormity of what we'd done. The apartment felt alien, a far cry from the home we'd left behind. Doubt crept in, insidious and persistent. Had I made a terrible mistake? Could I really provide for Emily on my own? What if Martha was right and they did destroy us in court? I buried my face in my hands, tears flowing freely. The weight of our uncertain future pressed down on me, threatening to crush my spirit. A soft touch on my shoulders startled me. Emily stood there, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Mom, are you okay?" I tried to wipe away my tears to be strong for her, but I couldn't stop the sobs that racked my body. Emily sat beside me, wrapping her arms around me. "It's okay, Mom," she whispered. "We're going to be okay." As I clung to my daughter, I realized the true magnitude of what lay ahead. This wasn't just about surviving a divorce or standing up to Martha. This was about rebuilding our entire lives from the ground up. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with legal battles and financial struggles. But looking at Emily, seeing her strength and resilience, I knew one thing for certain. We would face it together, no matter what came our way. I stood outside the courthouse, my heart pounding. Today was the final hearing in our divorce case. Emily squeezed my hand, her presence a steady anchor in the storm of emotions swirling within me. "You've got this, Mom," she whispered. As we walked in, I caught sight of Alex and Martha. They looked haggard, a far cry from the polished, entitled pair they'd been months ago. Our eyes met, and for a moment I saw a flicker of regret in Alex's gaze. But then Martha whispered something in his ear, and his face hardened once more. The hearing was a blur of legal jargon and tense exchanges. Our lawyer presented evidence of Alex's financial misconduct, of Martha's lavish spending at our expense. I watched as the judge's expression grew increasingly stern. When it was my turn to speak, I stood on shaky legs, but as I began to recount our story, the years of manipulation, the disregard for Emily's well-being, the betrayal of our family's future, I felt a strength I didn't know I possessed surge through me. "Your Honor," I concluded, my voice steady, "I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for justice, for a chance to rebuild the life that was stolen from us." The judge's verdict came swiftly. In light of the evidence, she ruled heavily in our favor. Alex was ordered to repay the money he'd funneled to Martha, and a significant portion of our assets were awarded to me and Emily. As the gavel fell, I heard Martha's indignant shriek, "This is outrageous! We'll appeal!" But Alex's shoulders slumped in defeat. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and in that moment, I saw the man I'd once loved, the man who'd been lost to his mother's influence. He nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of the justice served. Outside the courthouse, Emily hugged me fiercely. "We did it, Mom. We really did it." Mackenzie joined our embrace, tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you both," she said. As we celebrated that night in our small apartment, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would still be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt hope for our future. Months passed, and slowly we rebuilt our lives. I threw myself into my work, earning a promotion that allowed us to move to a better apartment. Emily thrived in her new school, her confidence growing day by day. One afternoon, as I helped Emily prepare for her high school entrance exam, she paused, her expression serious. "Mom," she said softly, "I want you to know, I'm proud of you, for standing up to Dad and Grandma, for fighting for us. You're the strongest person I know." Tears welled in my eyes as I hugged her close. "Oh, sweetie, you're the one who gave me strength. We did this together." The day Emily's acceptance letter to the prestigious private high school arrived, we danced around the kitchen, laughing and crying in equal measure. As we collapsed on the couch, breathless with joy, I marveled at how far we'd come. "We made it, Em," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Look at everything we've accomplished." Emily smiled, her eyes shining. "We did, Mom, and it's just the beginning." That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on our journey. The pain, the fear, the uncertainty, it had all led us here to this moment of triumph. We'd faced down the storm and emerged stronger, our bond unbreakable. I thought of Alex and Martha, wondering if they'd found peace in the aftermath of our battle. Part of me hoped they had, that they'd learned from their mistakes. But a larger part of me realized it didn't matter anymore. We'd moved on, creating a life filled with love, respect, and mutual support. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. For my daughter's resilience, for my sister's unwavering support, for the strength I discovered within myself. We'd weathered the storm, and now, finally, we were home. Our story wasn't one of revenge, but of reclamation. We'd reclaimed our dignity, our future, and most importantly, our right to happiness. And as I closed my eyes, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, stronger than ever before. "Zara, what the hell is this?" I demanded, holding up the shredded remains of my late mother's quilt. Zara smirked, her green eyes glinting with malice. "Oops, my scissors slipped. Guess you'll have to toss out that ratty old thing now, Camille. It's not like it belonged in this house anyway, just like you." I stood there, my hands shaking with rage as I clutched the tattered fabric. This quilt was the last piece of my mother I had left, a cherished memento of the love and warmth she always provided. And now, thanks to my spiteful teenage sister-in-law, it was ruined. But I shouldn't have been surprised. This was just another day in the Hawthorne household, where I was constantly reminded that I would never truly belong. As I looked around the lavish penthouse with its sleek modern furnishings and breathtaking city views, I felt like an outsider, an intruder in my own home. I had given up everything, my career as a fashion designer, my independence, my identity, to be with Jackson, to be the perfect society wife. But no matter how hard I tried, his family made it clear I would never be good enough. "What's going on in here?" Olivia, my mother-in-law, strutted into the room, her critical gaze sweeping over me. "Camille, I thought I told you to have the laundry finished by noon. Honestly, it's not that hard. What do you even do all day?" I bit my tongue, swallowing the retort that bubbled up, that I spent my days cooking, cleaning, and catering to her every whim, that I poured my heart into being the homemaker she demanded, even as she belittled my every effort. "I was just about to get to it, Olivia," I said evenly, "but then I found this." I held up the destroyed quilt, my eyes burning with unshed tears. "Zara, Oh, that old thing?" Olivia cut me off with a dismissive wave. "It was an eyesore anyway. Zara did you a favor getting rid of it." She turned to her daughter with an approving smile. "Good job, sweetheart. This house has no room for Camille's second-hand rags." Zara preened under the praise, shooting me a triumphant smirk. I opened my mouth to protest, but just then Jackson walked in. "What's with all the commotion?" he asked, loosening his tie. His eyes fell on the quilt in my hands, and he frowned. "Is that your mother's blanket? What happened to it?" "Your sister destroyed it," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "On purpose, and your mother is congratulating her." Jackson sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Cam, I'm sure it was an accident. Don't make a big deal out of it." An accident? Was he serious? I stared at him, searching his face for any hint of the man I fell in love with, the man who promised to always stand by my side. But lately, that man was getting harder and harder to find. "You're taking their side?" I asked incredulously. "Again, Jackson, this quilt was priceless to me. It was all I had left of my mother, and now it's gone." "It's just a blanket, Camille," he said impatiently. "I'll buy you a new one, a nicer one. Just let it go, okay? Let it go." That's what he always said. Every time his family disrespected me, every time they made me feel small and worthless, he told me to let it go, to be the bigger person. But as I stood there, surrounded by the people who were supposed to be my family, I realized I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep shrinking myself to fit into their narrow expectations. I couldn't keep sacrificing my happiness, my very sense of self, for a man who wouldn't even stand up for me. Something inside me snapped, a hidden reserve of strength and resolve I didn't know I had. I dropped the ruined quilt and squared my shoulders, meeting Olivia's icy glare head-on. "No," I said firmly, "I won't let it go. Not this time. I'm done being your punching bag. I'm done playing by your rules. From now on, I'm standing up for myself, with or without your support." And with that, I turned on my heel and walked out, my head held high. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. I was done being a doormat in my own life. It was time to take back control, no matter the cost. The confrontation with Zara and Olivia left me shaking with anger and humiliation. I couldn't believe the cruelty they were capable of, destroying the one thing I cherished most. And Jackson, my supposed partner, had once again failed to stand up for me. I stormed into our bedroom, hot tears stinging my eyes. I yanked open the closet door, grabbing a suitcase and tossing clothes haphazardly inside. I couldn't stay here another minute, not with these vipers who delighted in tearing me down. "What do you think you're doing?" Jackson's voice cut through the room, sharp and accusatory. I whirled around, my heart pounding. "I'm leaving, Jackson. I can't do this anymore. I won't." He scoffed, crossing his arms. "Don't be dramatic, Camille. It was just a stupid quilt." "It was my mother's quilt," I shouted, my voice cracking. "The only piece of her I had left, and your sister destroyed it on purpose, while your mother cheered her on." "They didn't mean anything by it," he said dismissively. "You're overreacting as usual." I stared at him, incredulous. "Overreacting? Are you kidding me? Your family has done nothing but belittle and demean me from the moment I stepped into this house, and you've let them." "What do you want me to do, Camille?" he snapped. "They're my family. I can't just turn my back on them." "But you can turn your back on me," I retorted. "Your wife? The mother of your child?" He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "You knew what you were getting into when you married me. You knew my family could be difficult." "Difficult?" I laughed bitterly. "They're monsters, Jackson, and you're just as bad for enabling them." His face hardened, his eyes turning to ice. "Watch yourself, Camille. Remember, I'm the one who gave you this life. This luxurious penthouse, the clothes on your back, the food on your plate. Without me, you're nothing." His words hit me like a slap. Is that really how he saw me? As some charity case he had deigned to rescue from a life of mediocrity? "Well then, I guess it's a good thing I'm leaving," I said coldly. "I'd rather have nothing than spend another second with you and your toxic family." I zipped up the suitcase, brushing past him, but he grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to bruise. "If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back," he hissed. "I'll make sure you never see Mia again. I'll bury you in so much legal red tape you'll be destitute and alone. Is that what you want?" Fear seized my heart at the thought of losing my daughter, of being cut off from the one pure, untainted love in my life. But then something caught my eye. Peeking out from under the bed was a scrap of red lace. With a sinking feeling, I reached down and pulled out a skimpy thong, one that definitely didn't belong to me. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, holding up the offending undergarment. For a split second, panic flashed across Jackson's face, but he quickly composed himself, snatching the thong from my hand. "It's nothing," he said smoothly. "Probably just something of Zara's that got mixed up in the laundry." "Bullshit," I spat. "Zara wouldn't be caught dead in La Perla, but you know who would?" I stepped closer, my voice dripping with venom. "Your secretary, Lily." He blanched, confirming my suspicions. The late nights at the office, the whispered phone calls, the designer gifts he claimed were for clients. It all made sense now. "How long?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. "How long have you been screwing her behind my back?" "Camille, I can explain," he started, but I cut him off with a harsh laugh. "Save it," I said, grabbing my suitcase. "I'm done. With you, with this sham of a marriage, with this entire fucked-up family. You can have your little mistress. But I'm taking Mia, and I'm taking you for everything you're worth." I strode out of the room, my head held high, even as tears streamed down my face. I had lost my mother's quilt, my dignity, my faith in the man I loved. But I refused to lose myself. This was war, and I was ready to fight like hell. With shaking hands, I rifled through the drawers of Jackson's mahogany desk, my heart pounding in my ears. I needed proof of his infidelity, something tangible to use against him in the divorce proceedings. Beneath a stack of financial reports, I found it. A small, black velvet box. My stomach lurched as I flipped it open, revealing a stunning diamond bracelet. The kind of bracelet you give to a mistress, not a wife. I snapped a photo with my phone, then kept digging. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, email printouts, all painting a sordid picture of Jackson's extramarital activities. He had been lavishing Lily with gifts and clandestine getaways, all while treating me like a burden. Rage bubbled up inside me, hot and fierce. How dare he? How dare he betray me, humiliate me, make me feel like I was the problem when he was the one stepping out on our marriage? I thought back to all the times he had critiqued my appearance, making snide comments about my post-baby body. The way he would roll his eyes when I talked about my fashion blog, dismissing it as a silly hobby. He had chipped away at my self-esteem, piece by piece, until I barely recognized myself. But now I saw him for what he truly was. A manipulative, selfish bastard who cared only about his own pleasure and status. Well, I was done being his trophy wife, his arm candy, his doormat. I gathered up the evidence, stuffing it into my purse. Then I marched into the living room where Jackson was pouring himself a scotch, acting like he didn't have a care in the world. "You son of a bitch," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "How could you do this to me, to our family?" He looked up, his expression a mix of annoyance and boredom. "Do what, Camille? What are you babbling about now?" I threw the credit card statements at his feet, watching as they fluttered to the ground. "I know about Lily. I know you've been cheating on me." For a moment he looked stunned. Then his face twisted into an ugly sneer. "So what if I have? Can you blame me? Look at you, Camille. You let yourself go. You're not the woman I married." His words sliced through me like a knife, but I refused to let him see me crumble. Not anymore. "No, I'm not," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I'm better, because I'm done letting you treat me like garbage. I'm done being your wife, your punching bag, your fucking servant." I pulled out my phone, showing him the photo of the diamond bracelet. I wonder what the tabloids would make of this. The great Jackson Hawthorne caught showering his secretary with jewels while his wife raises his child. His face paled, his eyes darting to the phone. "Camille, let's not be hasty. We can work this out. I can change, I swear." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "It's too late for that. I've already filed for divorce, and I'm going for full custody of Mia." "You can't do that," he sputtered, his fists clenching. "I won't let you take my daughter from me." "You should have thought of that before you stuck your dick in your secretary," I spat. "I'm done being your doormat, Jackson. I'm taking Mia, and I'm taking half of everything. You can rot in hell with your precious family for all I care." I turned to walk away, but his next words stopped me cold. "You'll never make it on your own," he sneered. "You're nothing without me, Camille. Just a washed-up wannabe designer with a stupid little blog. You need me." I whirled back around, getting right in his face. "Watch me," I hissed. "I'm going to build a life for myself and Mia, a better life than you ever gave us. And when I'm a success, when my designs are walking down runways and gracing magazine covers, I'll make sure the whole world knows the truth about you, about the kind of man you really are." With that, I stormed out of the penthouse. Mia clutched tightly in my arms. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I was never looking back. Jackson Hawthorne and his vicious family could burn in the hell they'd made for themselves. I was free, and I was ready to rise from the ashes, stronger than ever. Months had passed since I walked out on Jackson and his toxic family. Mia and I had settled into a small but cozy studio apartment, far from the glittering penthouse that had been our gilded cage. Money was tight, but we were making it work. I poured my heart into my fashion blog, determined to turn it into something more, a career, a future, a way out of the mess my life had become. I was just putting Mia down for a nap when a frantic knocking sounded at the door. Frowning, I tiptoed over and peeked through the peephole. My stomach dropped. Zara. For a moment, I considered pretending I wasn't home. The last thing I needed was more drama from the Hawthorns. But something in Zara's expression, a desperate, haunted look I had never seen before, made me unlock the door. "Zara?" I said cautiously. "What are you doing here?" She pushed past me, her eyes wild. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, her voice breaking. "Everything's fallen apart, Camille. It's all gone to shit." I closed the door, my heart pounding. "What are you talking about? What's happened?" The story spilled out of her in fits and starts, each revelation more shocking than the last. After the divorce, Walter's shady business dealings had come to light. Embezzlement, fraud, money laundering. He had been running a criminal empire right under everyone's noses. The FBI had seized all their assets, leaving the family penniless and disgraced. Jackson, unable to cope with the shame and pressure, had turned to alcohol and gambling. He had blown through what little money they had left, racking up massive debts to some very dangerous people. Olivia, always so poised and put together, had suffered a nervous breakdown and was currently in a psychiatric ward. And Zara? She had been unceremoniously kicked out of her elite private school, her tuition left unpaid. She was broke, homeless, and utterly alone. "I didn't know where else to turn," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I know I've been awful to you, Camille. I know I don't deserve your help, but I have nowhere else to go." I stared at her, conflicting emotions warring inside me. A part of me, the part that still stung from her cruelty, wanted to turn her away, to let her suffer the consequences of her actions. But another part, the part that knew how it felt to be lost and scared, couldn't bear to leave her on the streets. "You can stay here," I said finally, my voice tight, "for a little while, until you figure something out." Her shoulders sagged with relief, fresh tears spilling over. "Thank you," she breathed. "Thank you so much, Camille. I swear, I'll make it up to you. I'll be better, I promise." I held up a hand, cutting off her tearful rambling. "Let's get one thing straight, Zara. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Mia. She deserves to have her aunt in her life, even if that aunt is a spoiled brat who made my life hell." Zara flinched at my harsh words, but nodded. "I understand, and I'm sorry, Camille, for everything." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I know, but sorry doesn't erase the past. If you're going to stay here, there will be rules, boundaries. You will treat me with respect, pull your weight around the apartment, and be a positive influence on Mia. If you can't do that, then there's the door." She nodded vigorously, her eyes wide. "I will, I promise. I'll do whatever you say." "Good," I said, my tone softening slightly. "Then let's get you settled in. It's not much, but it's home." As I showed Zara to the pull-out couch that would be her bed, I couldn't help but marvel at the twists and turns life had taken. A year ago, I had been the one groveling at the Hawthorns' feet, desperate for scraps of their approval. Now they were the ones crawling to me for help. Their world shattered beyond repair. It was a bittersweet victory, one that tasted of ashes and regret. But as I watched Zara curl up on the couch, her face etched with gratitude and exhaustion, I knew I had made the right choice. Not for her, but for me. For the person I wanted to be, the person my mother had raised me to be. Someone who could find compassion, even in the face of cruelty. Someone who could rise above the pain and pettiness and choose to be better. Someone who could finally truly be free. Living with Zara was a test of my patience and resolve. Despite her tearful promises to change, old habits die hard. She was moody, entitled, and prone to lashing out when things didn't go her way. More than once I had to bite my tongue to keep from throwing her out on the street. But I persevered, for Mia's sake. My daughter had lost so much already. Her father, her grandparents, the only home she'd ever known. I couldn't bear to take her aunt away, too, no matter how difficult Zara made things. So I set clear boundaries, laying out the rules of the apartment in no uncertain terms. Zara was to clean up after herself, contribute to the household chores, and watch her language around Mia. If she couldn't follow those simple guidelines, she was welcome to leave. To my surprise, Zara actually made an effort. She tidied the living room without being asked, helped with the dishes, and even entertained Mia while I worked on my blog. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was progress. And my blog, it was finally taking off. My honest, raw posts about my divorce and starting over had struck a chord with readers. My follower count was skyrocketing, and I was getting more sponsored content offers than ever before. But the real game changer came in the form of an email from a major fashion magazine. They had stumbled across my blog and were impressed with my designs. They wanted to feature me in a multi-page spread, showcasing my work to the world. I stared at the email, my heart pounding. This was it. The big break I had been dreaming of. The chance to turn my passion into a real career. With shaking hands, I typed out a reply, accepting their offer. I knew I should be ecstatic, but a part of me was terrified. Putting myself out there, exposing my creations to the judgment of the fashion industry, it was a huge risk. If they hated my work, it could crush my dreams before they even had a chance to take flight. But I couldn't let fear hold me back. Not anymore. I had spent too long playing it safe, shrinking myself to fit into the mold of the perfect wife and mother. It was time to bet on myself, to chase my dreams with everything I had. I threw myself into preparing for the feature, stitching and sketching late into the night. Zara, to her credit, stepped up to help with Mia, keeping her occupied so I could work. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. As the date of the photo shoot approached, I could barely contain my excitement. This was really happening. I was going to be in a magazine, my designs splashed across glossy pages for all the world to see. I was so caught up in my own head, I almost didn't hear the knock at the door. Assuming it was the mailman, I swung it open without checking the peephole. My stomach dropped. There, standing in the dingy hallway of my apartment building, were the last people I ever expected to see. Jackson, Walter, and Olivia. My ex-husband and former in-laws, the people who had made my life a living hell. They looked haggard and worn, their designer clothes rumpled and stained. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and fear. Jackson stepped forward, his bloodshot eyes pleading. "Camille, we need your help. We have nowhere else to go." I wanted to slam the door in their faces, to tell them to go to hell and never come back. But before I could, Walter shouldered his way into the apartment, Olivia and Jackson close behind. "We're moving in," Walter announced, dropping his suitcase on the floor. "You have a spare room, don't you? It'll be just like old times." I stared at them, my mouth hanging open in shock. The audacity, the sheer nerve of these people. To show up at my door, expecting me to take them in after everything they had done. But as I looked at their desperate, defeated faces, I realized something. They had nothing left. No money, no status, no power. They were at rock bottom, just like I had been. And in that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could turn them away, leave them to fend for themselves on the streets, or I could be the bigger person, the person my mother had raised me to be. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Fine," I said, my voice hard. "You can stay, but we're doing this on my terms. And if you cross me, even once, you're gone." "Understood?" They nodded, relief etched on their faces. As they shuffled into the apartment, a sense of grim satisfaction settled over me. The Hawthorns had taken everything from me. My home, my marriage, my self-worth. But now the tables had turned. Now they were the ones at my mercy, and I was going to make damn sure they never forgot it. The Hawthorns settled into my apartment like a plague, infesting every corner with their toxic presence. They critiqued everything from the size of the rooms to the threadbare furnishings, making snide comments about how far I had fallen. I gritted my teeth and bore it, reminding myself that this was temporary. As soon as my feature launched, I would have the means to kick them out and never look back. But living with them was a nightmare. Walter and Olivia commandeered the bedroom, leaving Jackson to sleep on the couch. They treated my home like a hotel, expecting me to wait on them hand and foot. Olivia was the worst, constantly finding fault with my parenting and housekeeping. "Really, Camille," she sniffed, eyeing the dishes in the sink. "I thought you would have learned to keep a cleaner house by now. It's no wonder Jackson strayed." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. It took every ounce of willpower not to throw her designer luggage out the window. Jackson, for his part, mostly avoided me. He spent his days sulking around the apartment, drinking my cheap vodka and muttering about his fall from grace. I caught him eyeing Zara a few times, his gaze lingering on her developing curves. It made my skin crawl. But Zara surprised me. She stepped up in ways I never could have imagined, helping with Mia and standing up to Olivia's barbs. "Back off, Mom," she snapped one evening when Olivia started in on my cooking. "Camille's doing the best she can, which is more than I can say for you." Olivia's face turned an ugly shade of purple, but she shut her mouth. I shot Zara a grateful look, mouthing a silent, "Thank you." As the day of my big photo shoot approached, the tension in the apartment reached a boiling point. I was a bundle of nerves, triple-checking my designs and obsessing over every detail. "I don't know why you're bothering with this silly little hobby," Walter sneered, flipping through my sketches. "It's not like you have any real talent. You should be focusing on finding a rich husband to take care of you and Mia." I snatched the sketches back, my hands shaking with rage. "This is not a hobby," I said, my voice low and fierce. "This is my career, my passion, and I will not let you or anyone else diminish that." Walter scoffed, exchanging a knowing look with Olivia. "Career? Please. You're a washed-up housewife with delusions of grandeur. You'll never make it in the fashion world." I opened my mouth to retort, but Mia's cry from the bedroom cut me off. I shot Walter a venomous glare and hurried to comfort my daughter. As I rocked Mia back to sleep, I felt a surge of determination. I would show them. I would show everyone. I was more than just Jackson Hawthorne's ex-wife, more than a mother, more than a failed socialite. I was Camille Rousseau, a designer, a dreamer, a survivor. And I was going to take the fashion world by storm, no matter what it took. The morning of the shoot dawned bright and clear. I kissed Mia goodbye, leaving her in Zara's capable hands. Then I gathered up my designs and headed out the door, my heart pounding with excitement and nerves. But when I returned home that evening, flush with the success of the shoot, I found the apartment in chaos. Mia was crying, her little face streaked with tears. Zara was nowhere to be seen. And there, in the middle of the living room, were Walter and Olivia. They were surrounded by the tattered remains of my sketches and fabric samples, their faces twisted with malice. "What have you done?" I gasped, my voice barely above a whisper. Olivia smiled, a cruel, vicious thing. "We put an end to this foolish pipe dream of yours. Did you really think we would let you succeed? Let you humiliate us even further?" I stared at the ruins of my work, months of blood, sweat, and tears reduced to scraps. I wanted to scream, to rage, to fall to my knees and weep, but I didn't. I couldn't. Not in front of them. Not in front of Mia. So I did the only thing I could. I squared my shoulders, lifted my chin, and met their triumphant gazes with a steely one of my own. "Get out," I said, my voice calm and cold as ice. "Get out of my house and never come back. You have no power over me anymore." And with that, I took my daughter's hand and walked away, leaving the stunned Hawthornes in my wake. They had tried to break me, to crush my dreams and my spirit, but they had underestimated me. I was Camille Rousseau, and I would rise from the ashes of their cruelty, stronger and more determined than ever. This was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of grim determination. The Hawthornes had destroyed my designs, but they hadn't destroyed me. I would not let their cruelty derail my dreams. I got Mia ready for daycare, kissing her chubby cheeks and promising to be back soon. Then I headed out to meet with the magazine editor, praying that I could salvage something from this mess. But when I arrived at the office, my heart sank. The editor's face was tight with concern, her brow furrowed as she flipped through the tattered remains of my portfolio. "Camille," she said gently, "I'm so sorry, but we can't run the feature like this. The designs are ruined, and we go to print in less than a week. There's just no time to reshoot everything." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. This was my big break, my one shot at making it in the fashion world. And now, thanks to the Hawthornes, it was slipping through my fingers. But I refused to give up. "Not now, not ever. Please," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "I can fix this. I can recreate the designs, work around the clock to make it happen. Just give me a chance." The editor hesitated, her eyes searching mine. "Okay," she said finally. "You have 48 hours. If you can deliver the designs by then, we'll run the feature. But Camille, this is your last chance. Don't let me down." I nodded, my throat tight with gratitude and determination. "I won't, I promise." I raced home, my mind already whirling with ideas. I would have to work nonstop, forgoing sleep and meals to make this happen, but I would do it. I had to. When I burst through the door of my apartment, however, I stopped short. The place was trashed, even worse than before. Furniture overturned, dishes smashed, clothes strewn everywhere. And there, in the middle of the chaos, was Zara. She was huddled on the floor, her knees drawn up to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Zara?" I said softly, kneeling down beside her. "What happened? Where's Mia?" She looked up at me, her eyes haunted. "They took her," she whispered. "Mom and Dad, they came back after you left, demanding to see her. I tried to stop them, but they pushed past me. They said they were taking her away, that you were an unfit mother, that she belonged with them." My blood ran cold. They had taken my daughter. My sweet, innocent Mia, the one pure light in my life. I grabbed Zara by the shoulders, my fingers digging into her skin. "Where did they go? Tell me, Zara. Where did they take her?" She shook her head, fresh tears spilling over. "I don't know. They wouldn't say. But Camille, there's something else." She took a shuddering breath, her next words hitting me like a sledgehammer. "Jackson was with them. He helped them take her." I staggered back, my vision blurring. Jackson. My ex-husband, the father of my child. He had betrayed me in the deepest way possible, siding with his vicious family over his own daughter. But I didn't have time to process the pain, the anger, the sickening sense of betrayal. I had to find Mia. I had to get her back. I turned to Zara, my voice hard as steel. Pack a bag. We're going to find them, and we're going to bring Mia home. And then... I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. Then we're going to make them pay for what they've done. Zara nodded, a flicker of her old fire returning to her eyes. I'm with you, Camille. No matter what it takes. We set out into the night, two women on a mission. I didn't know where the Hawthorns had gone or how we would find them, but I did know one thing. They had messed with the wrong mother, the wrong woman, and they were about to learn just how far I would go to protect what was mine. This wasn't just about my career anymore, or my pride, or even my revenge. This was about my daughter, my family, and heaven help anyone who stood in my way. It had been 5 years since that fateful night. 5 years since I had rescued Mia from the clutches of the Hawthorns and walked away from their toxic influence for good. In that time, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. My feature in the magazine had been a resounding success, launching my career as a sought-after designer. I had moved Mia and myself into a beautiful townhouse, far from the painful memories of our past. We were happy, healthy, and thriving. But I never forgot what the Hawthorns had done, the scars they had left on my soul. And as I watched their lives unravel from afar, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. Walter and Olivia, once the king and queen of high society, were now divorced and destitute. Walter had been arrested for his financial crimes, his reputation in tatters. Olivia, unable to cope with the shame and scandal, had fled to Europe, where she lived a lonely, bitter existence. Jackson, my charming ex-husband, had drowned in his own vices. His gambling debts had caught up with him, forcing him to sell off every last possession. Last I heard, he was living in a seedy motel room, drowning his sorrows in cheap whiskey. And then there was Zara, my former tormentor, the girl who had made my life a living hell. She had shown up at my door a few months ago, looking thin and haggard, her eyes haunted by the ghosts of her past. "Camille," she had whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am for everything." I had stared at her, this broken shell of a girl, and felt a flicker of pity. "I forgave you a long time ago, Zara," I said softly. "Not for your sake, but for mine. Holding on to that anger, that resentment, it was poisoning me from the inside out." She had nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I don't deserve your kindness, Camille, not after what I did. But I want you to know that I'm going to be better. I'm going to make something of myself, just like you did." I had smiled then, a genuine smile. "I know you will, Zara. You're a Hawthorn, after all, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that we're survivors." She had left then, her head held high, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. And as I watched her go, I realized that I had finally found the peace I had been searching for all these years. Not through revenge or spite or bitterness, but through forgiveness, through letting go of the past and embracing the future. I looked around my beautiful home, at the photos of Mia and I smiling and laughing, at the racks of clothing bearing my own label. I had built this life for myself, brick by brick, stitch by stitch, and I was proud of it. I thought back to that scared, broken woman I had been all those years ago, the one who had cowered in the shadow of the Hawthorns' cruelty. I barely recognized her now because I was no longer that woman. I was Camille Rousseau, fashion designer, mother, survivor, and I had risen from the ashes of my past like a phoenix, stronger and more radiant than ever before. As I sat down at my desk to sketch out my latest collection, I felt a sense of deep contentment wash over me. I had faced the demons of my past and emerged victorious. I had found my purpose, my passion, my true self, and nothing, not the Hawthorns, not the challenges of single motherhood, not the cutthroat world of fashion could take that away from me. I was free. I was whole. I was finally truly happy. And as I lost myself in the flow of creation, the fabrics and colors swirling beneath my fingertips, I knew that this was just the beginning of my new life, my new story. A story of resilience, of redemption, of love, a story that was all my own.
I turned 15 3 days ago, but things didn't go precisely as planned. My parents surprised me with a family trip to the Callista on my birthday, which I learned about with great delight. I couldn't stop being happy. I was overjoyed since, as the younger, less significant sister, I don't often receive surprises like this. But when I walked downstairs with my luggage to depart with my family a few hours later after I had finished packing, I discovered that my folks had already left. Downstairs, my 17-year-old sister Layla was the only one waiting for me. She is the golden child, the one who consistently manages to convince our parents to comply with her requests. It was the same this time. I realized right away that something wasn't right, since she appeared to be quite joyful. She told me I could go back upstairs and unpack, and that I didn't need to pack my things when I asked her what was going on. I initially believed that the vacation had been completely postponed. She then gave me a sheet of paper with a list of household duties scribbled on it. I had a lot of confusion. Although my parents had surprised me with the vacation early in the morning, Layla informed me that they had made the decision that it would be best for me to remain home and study because our finals were in a few weeks. She had already completed everything, so in the meanwhile, she could leave. I could concentrate on these domestic chores if I became bored while they were gone in the Callista. She chuckled again and said I should actually be thanking her, instead of appearing offended. Instead of letting me waste time playing outside with my family, she said, she had given me extra time to study and be ready for my finals. I was so wounded that the only thing I could manage to say was to inquire about the whereabouts of our parents. As a birthday present to me, Layla informed me that she had already sent them on their way to the airport, but had lingered behind to personally deliver this message. She stated that Layla had brought up my finals shortly after my parents surprised us with the vacation, but they wanted me to know they weren't putting false hopes in my head. They believed that this was a good thing since they couldn't ignore it. They couldn't bring themselves to shatter my heart, so they had let Layla to inform me. I had no doubt that Layla enjoyed and appreciated the chance to make fun of me in such a way. I pushed down the need to cry in front of her and took my stuff back upstairs. I waited until I heard the front door close before giving in to my tears, which lasted for an hour. Layla has always detested me, and I've always understood that my parents will follow her instructions without question, since she has the ultimate say-so. However, I never thought they would be that mean and degrading to me on my birthday. I've had my fair share of arguments with Layla in the past, and my parents have always supported her, but this was unthinkable. I even emailed my pals on my birthday morning to let them know I wouldn't be able to spend the evening with them as planned after my parents informed me about the surprise trip. They couldn't believe my parents had planned anything similar for me. Some things are, I suppose, just too wonderful to be true. The more I considered my predicament when I stopped weeping, the worse I felt. To get even with my parents and Layla, I made the decision to do something I knew would immensely enrage them. Since I was alone myself at home, I walked into my dad's office and used his phone to call every significant person I could find on his MacBook. I had planned a celebration for my parents' anniversary that evening, and I extended an invitation to them. My intention was to take them by surprise. Despite being invited at the last minute, the majority of his business associates accepted. I treated my mother in the same way. It was simple for me because neither of them had left their password-protected gadgets at home. I sent the same message and extended an invitation to Layla's boyfriend to attend the nighttime party by text message on Instagram. I also invited my own friends, and I enlisted their assistance in decorating the house to resemble a party. When the visitors arrived about 7 o'clock in the evening, they were surprised to discover that my parents had vanished from sight. I informed them that it was an evening surprise, and that they would learn the truth eventually. I executed my plan after taking a group shot with every visitor when they had all arrived. I gave them the precise location of my parents, described how I had been handled, and mentioned how my parents had always complied with Layla's requests. I had never said that I was essentially Cinderella until today. Because Layla felt it was the appropriate thing to do, I revealed what had happened on my birthday, and how my parents had abandoned me without even trying to make an in-person explanation. A great deal of folks were astonished. While my parents present a pleasant and decent front, they don't treat their own children in such a way. I informed everyone that my sister and my parents were the reason I had hosted the party after telling my story. I could see her lover was taken aback to discover her nasty side when I gave them the list of tasks Layla had left me. I said something, and everyone fell silent, till finally people started to leave. Before they went, several came up to comfort me. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but the only thing I felt horrible about was squandering their time. I sent my parents and Layla the group photo after everyone had departed, writing, "Had some guests over for my birthday party today. I believe the list Layla left me will eventually be begun. It was the ideal scheme." My parents replied to that message in a matter of seconds, asking me to undo what I had done, and that they would be returning home on the following flight. I went to my closest friend Sophie's place with my suitcases and blocked them all. I realized the place was no longer mine. Sophie's parents are very kind individuals who have consistently assured me that their doors will always be open. I made the choice to move in with them after accepting their offer. I'm not sure how long Sophie's family will be able to help me, but for the time being, I'm really appreciative to them for allowing me to stay in their house. Anyway, I had no communication from my folks on my birthday. However, they visited Sophie's home the next day. Since everyone knew that Sophie and I had been close friends since we were young, I suppose no one was shocked that I had decided to stay with her. I had made it quite apparent that I was not interested in dealing with her parents, so when my parents arrived, they refused to let them in and told them they had no business attempting to talk to me. I became a little afraid when my parents threatened to file a lawsuit against Sophie's parents. I then instructed them to invite my folks inside, and that I would be available for a conversation. They were enraged with me and told me I had no right to implicate their business colleagues, regardless of what they had done. They said that no colleagues or associates would even talk to them, and that their entire reputation was in shambles. Some of them were blaming me for everything, even going so far as to block my parents. I think it's fair to hold me accountable because I did plan the whole thing, but I also informed them that I wouldn't have done all of this if they had been a little more kind and hadn't made fun of me on my birthday. I finally lost my cool and yelled at them, accusing them of treating me worse than Layla and ruining my life along with my parents. That was something I could never forgive them for. Sophie's parents had to step in because things got pretty hot and we were all screaming at each other. To help me relax, Sophie had to usher me out of the room. Her parents came to me and told me that my folks had departed after I had finally calmed down. They would see to it that I never spoke to my parents until I was ready to see them. They advised me to really think about taking legal action, such as emancipating myself from my parents. It was time to permanently remove them out of my life, since it was becoming more and more clear that they didn't give a damn about me. We are now thinking about emancipation after I chose to consult with a lawyer after talking with Sophie's parents about this. Since this is a big choice, and I don't want to look back, I'm still not sure what to think about it. However, given the current direction of events, I doubt I will regret it. I refuse to let my parents contact me again, but they did so yesterday. I was able to identify my parents from the email address I received last evening. I made a great effort not to open it, but eventually my curiosity got the better of me, and I read it. They began by explaining that one of my father's clients had established a new spa and resort in the Callista, which is why they were surprising me with the trip. My dad chose to take advantage of this chance around my birthday, because it was a benefit for the family. But they didn't want my marks to suffer later, because I had taken a holiday just a few weeks before my examinations, which is why Layla brought up my finals. They were shocked that I thought it was something terrible, and attempted to exact revenge on them. They believed it gave the impression that they hadn't reared me properly. Layla wanted to be a nice, caring big sister to me, but she was sad herself. They said that I didn't have to overreact in the manner that I did. All of it was a load of nonsense. I nearly quit reading the email halfway through because I was so irritated. The following section was their outrage that I had exposed our filthy laundry in public and engaged other people. They remarked that no matter how many arguments we had, I had never gone to them and confided in them about my problems. They felt that they could have reconciled with me if I had talked to them just once. They insisted that Layla's list of tasks was a little excessive, but I ought to have phoned them later and addressed the matter. If they had known I was feeling abandoned, they would have returned right away. They were unhappy with everything, though, because of the unexpected way I had handled the matter. They said that this was all a regrettable mistake that had been exaggerated, and that they truly didn't wish to harm me. They want me to talk to them so we can work things out, but at this point, I'm not sure what I want to do. I'm feeling a lot of different things about this. So, could someone please assist me with this? Aite for planning a party and exposing my parents to all of their business acquaintances and co-workers after they neglected me while on vacation? First update. All right, so the majority of you believe that what I did was totally justified and that they deserved it. That I'm not in need of an apology. I have thus made the decision to not apologize. To prevent them from contacting me, I blocked the email address they were using to get in touch with me. Even though I know they can simply create a new address and try to contact me again, I'll continue to block them. I've already decided that I won't read or reply to whatever they try to say. It's simply not worthwhile. In terms of liberation, I've made the decision to follow through. I understand that I'm still too young, but it's a big thing. However, Sophie and her parents have promised me that they would support me no matter what. If it helps calm my nerves, they even stated they could legally adopt me. That's not anything I've considered yet. We are simply considering the emancipation at this time. After speaking with an attorney, the paperwork is being completed. I genuinely have no idea how my folks will respond. I could tell they were unhappy with my decision to move in with Sophie and her parents when they wrote me that email. It doesn't even make sense to me since it's clear from the way I've been treated that they value Layla more than they do me. It's odd that they're still attempting to get in touch with me. It seems like all they want me back for is to restore their reputation. I'm perplexed right now. All I can do is watch to see how they respond after they receive the documents. They didn't try to contact me again after that email, and it has been a few days since I posted. I've heard that Layla and her boyfriend broke up, and there were a lot of people at the party I invited, so I know things can't be good for them either. Everyone knows why, but not me. Second update. Hello everyone. So a few days ago, the papers pertaining to my legal emancipation were finally given to my parents. I was surprised to learn that they were unhappy about it. There was a heated argument when they phoned Sophie's parents. They thought that I was being controlled by Sophie and her parents, who had set me up for this. They didn't believe that I was acting voluntarily. It didn't make sense to me because I was acting voluntarily, especially in light of how poorly they had treated me. I didn't need any outside pressure to decide this. After my last update, a lot of you indicated they would attempt to save face and say I was being a brat, so I kind of expected this type of response. They were really irate with me since I chose not to return their favor. It won't erase the reality that Sophie's parents deserve this, no matter what names they choose to give them. I will soon be rid of them, as they don't deserve to be my parents. Sophie informed me that, despite my inability to listen closely, my parents had evidently called her parents every epithet in the book. They had threatened to sue them and take this matter to court, claiming that they had no right to subject me to such absurdity. They were extremely angry, and I felt it was strange that they had threatened to injure them. That's not legal, and it will just make them seem worse. I hope they recognize that. The way they had described me to Sophie's parents just confirmed my preconceived notions about them. Their desire to improve their public image overcame their affection for me as a daughter, not because they wanted me back. They'd made no mention of wanting to talk to me or have me back. They persisted in asserting that they were aware of Sophie's parents' desire to damage their image by seeming to be rescuers. My parents believed that Sophie's parents were attempting to expose my mistreatment at home to the public. They had been shouting over the phone, apparently, about how entitled and spoilt I had been. The fact that Sophie and her parents backed me simply served to highlight their unfit status as parents. They would have cared more for my well-being if they had truly loved me as a daughter, I'm quite sure. Rather than scream at Sophie's parents and seem to be attempting to harm my parents' image, they would have made an effort to speak with me. In any case, why would they want to do that? My parents and Sophie's parents are new to one another. They have no motivation to compete, as they have only come to know each other through the two of us. Given that Sophie's parents are far more prosperous and kind than anybody else, it's not like there's any competition at all. However, my parents believe Sophie's parents are just like them since they are so preoccupied with maintaining their perceived image. They think Sophie's parents are just trying to make fun of them and are incapable of caring about me. I really want to let my parents know that Sophie's parents are real and aren't acting like I need saving. Since it was them that I needed to be saved from, they are indeed my saviors. Instead of creating further turmoil, my parents would have expressed regret for what they had done if they had only realized that in the first place. However, no matter how tempted I am, Sophie and her parents have given me strong orders not to get in touch with them. It's simply not worthwhile. I am aware that a few days ago, my parents gave them a call. They informed me they had taped the call after arguing with me over the phone and providing me with only the information they deemed essential. My parents were really foolish because they might utilize it as proof that I should be freed from their control. They also said they wanted me to consider if I wanted to be formally adopted by them. Since I truly like them, I ultimately decided to say yes. It's not just because I know this will make my folks further angrier. The main reason is that I honestly think they are incredibly wonderful and decent individuals. I'm all in since having Sophie as my sister will be a perk. They have informed me that they will talk with the attorney again to begin the necessary paperwork. Knowing that I have better people to live with and rely on might also aid my emancipation cause. To be honest, things keep getting better, and for that, I am really appreciative of them. Third update. Hello, it was a really bad day. To cut a long tale short, Layla severely beat me after school. The English lesson I had last week was in the school's East Wing. She practically surrounded me with a group of her buddies while I was out of class. Unfortunately, because I take a very long time to pack my belongings, I am usually the last one out of class. The majority of individuals had left the classroom by the time I departed. I was a little terrified to see Layla and her pals standing outside, but I tried not to show it. They were really upset with me and told me I couldn't leave the classroom when I tried to. They informed me they had some tasks to settle with me and forced everyone else who was lingering in the classroom to leave. They didn't appear to mind that I made an effort to remain composed and square up so that my panic wouldn't come through. I shouted at Layla to let me go as she took hold of my arm and brought me outside. No one else could hear me since everyone else was talking loudly. Then they dragged me into the janitor's closet, locked me in, and left me there. They were standing outside while I continued to pound on the door. Even if someone heard me, they wouldn't dare take action because Layla and her pals have a bad reputation and are often in the senior class. Layla let me out after he had me in there for over 5 minutes. At that point, almost everyone in that school wing had left, leaving only me and myself against them. She screamed at me at that point, and I took the first slap in the face. She stated I was ungrateful to our parents and branded me selfish. Then it became clear why she was really upset. She blamed me for her boyfriend's breakup with her. She then banged my head on the concrete, which made me feel quite lightheaded. Taking advantage of the situation, she continued to beat me with her fists, while her buddies laughed and watched. It hurt so bad. I made an effort to protect myself, but Layla was considerably heavier and several inches taller. I really began curling up against the wall at one point, but she persisted in beating me. She gave me one last kick when she was pleased, and then she and her pals went as I sobbed against the wall. Sophie eventually discovered me sitting on the floor sobbing uncontrollably around 15 minutes later. She assisted me in getting up after I told her what had happened. I was too sick to walk, so we opted to take a cab home instead of going there together. Her folks seemed quite sad when I told them everything when we arrived home. They called the police after they had already contacted the school. They are rather busy because they have only been speaking on the phone for an hour since then. However, because I'm hurting very badly, Sophie is taking care of me. Everything hurts, and the bruises are only now beginning to appear. Nonetheless, I'm confident that Layla will soon receive her just desserts for this. Fourth update. Greetings. There are several topics I would want to discuss. All I'll do is attempt to make it brief and pleasant. Layla physically assaulted me last week, but luckily the school protected me. They gave the cops access to the security footage from that building's wing. It was not too difficult to charge her with a misdemeanor, and as compensation, she was required to perform community service. The greatest part is that she was also given a 6-week suspension after that. She had been eagerly awaiting prom, but it appears that she won't be able to go. She won't be allowed to take her final exams in front of the whole class either. She can't get away with it by lying. She has to be seated apart. I believe it is highly merited, and when Sophie informed me of everything, I felt a great sense of vindication. The fact that my parents chose to give up my rights following the Layla incident is another fantastic thing that happened. Yes, they renounced their parental rights toward me. I'm finally free because the paperwork has been signed. I am really appreciative of Sophie's parents, who are currently working on formally adopting me. After everything that transpired, my parents said they no longer wanted me to be a part of their family. They will undoubtedly attempt to paint me as the guilty party, but I doubt anyone will go for that. So long as they give it their all, it doesn't concern me. To be honest, I feel like I'm a member of a joyful family now. My new sister and parents are definitely better than the ones I had before. I can attest to that. The fact that things are now going well for me truly amazes me. I think I've never felt happier as I do right now. In fact, I had completely forgotten that my finals were approaching. But now that Sophie and I are becoming serious, we're going to prove to everyone what kind of person I am.